surrounded by love. I just wanna be alone.
Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. Today we're talking about Honda Rebel 500, this bike. And this is actually a very special cruiser, right? So this is a mother, or I would rather say father, of those small displacement cruisers. So CLC 450, Vogue 525, and all those other small to middle displacement cruisers, those bikes are available just because this bike is here, guys. So this was the first small displacement cruiser bike which people loved. And yeah, I feel like it is really important for me to talk about this machine since I'm talking about other cruisers. And even though this bike doesn't feature some cool features such as traction control, it doesn't have a quick shifter, it doesn't have ride-by-wire, this is a super simple machine. But somehow, guys, the more I ride this bike, the more I like it. So without further ado, let me just delve into those small details. And the first thing I want to talk about obviously would be the engine. So this is a parallel twin, liquid cooled obviously. It has 471 cc. It features 45 horsepower and something like 43 newton meters of torque at 6,000 rpm. So this engine is pretty fun. Let me rev it up for you. The only downside of this engine, of this bike rather than the engine, is the exhaust. Actually, I don't think it sounds good, especially since we're comparing this bike to CLC 450. Which has 270 degree crank. This is 180 degree crank, and it doesn't sound too good. Even Vogue 525, which has pretty much the same engine, sounds better. So probably if you change the muffler, it will sound a bit better. But other than that, guys, this bike is pretty unique in terms of the design. So it's like a bobber, right? The first time I saw this bike, I didn't like it a lot, but the more I look at it, the more I like it. One of the most remarkable parts of this machine, guys, is how low it looks in person. This bike isn't too low, but given that it has a very long wheelbase and the seat height is only 690 millimeters, especially given this fuel tank, which is going up, you feel as if the bike is really long and low. Speaking about this bike in details, it has tubular steel frame. The carb weight of this machine is 191 kilograms. So this is an ABS model, which is a bit heavier than the one which has no ABS, obviously. From the front, this bike is featuring 41 millimeter telescopic fork, which comes from Showa. I'm 85 kilograms, and this fork does feel good to me. It's non-adjustable, so if you don't like it, you cannot change it, but I feel like most riders will be pretty satisfied with this fork. And from behind, we have a dual shock. Another cool feature of this bike is that it doesn't have a belt drive. Over here, we can see a chain. So CLC 450 and Vogue 525, those two bikes, they're featuring belt drive, and this one has a chain drive. In my opinion, the only big downside of this bike is the tank. Actually, the tank does look dope. I really like the shape of it, but the capacity is pretty frustrating. So the capacity of this tank is only 11 liters. To be precise, it's 11.2 liters. Yesterday, as I was riding this bike for the first time, I ran out of gas and I was pulling the bike by myself, which wasn't very fun, to be honest. Alright guys, so if you're getting a bike which has only 11 liters tank capacity, you might find yourself in a situation similar to mine, where you have to push the bike with your own feet to the gas station. I got really lucky, guys, because the gas station was really close. But yeah, this is the big downside for me, this tiny ass gas tank. Tell me what you think about that in the comment section below. Another thing which I don't like about this machine, guys, is the front disc. So it's 296 millimeter single disc. We have a Nissin caliper, and this is not 4-piston caliper, this is 2-piston caliper. So the brake is not too bad, but if you want to stop fast, you need to squeeze the brake really hard. And this is something you need to get used to. And from behind we have 240mm single disc. This time we have one piston Nissan caliper. And of course this bike has LED headlights and taillights. This bike is featuring 130mm front tire, which is very fat. And from behind we have 150mm rear tire. This bike comes equipped with a slipper clutch, which is pretty gentle and soft, so I like it a lot. And we don't have adjustable levers. And one more thing I need to mention, guys, is that this bike doesn't have traction control. I don't really think that traction control is something necessary if we're talking about 500cc, especially in the cruiser, but given the competition, CLC 450 and CU 525, those two bikes, they come equipped with traction control straight from the factory, and this bike is over 40,000 RMB. Meanwhile, those two bikes are less than 30,000 RMB. Alright, my dear people, so I was talking about this bike for some time. I guess it is time for me to start riding, shall we? The first gear, let's go. The carb weight of this machine is 191 kilograms. And when you go fast, or when you move, I would say, you don't feel the weight of this machine. However, when you stop at a traffic light, especially when you're with a passenger, you do feel the heavy weight of this machine. It isn't heavy by no meaning, but compared to the competition, this is the heaviest bike. And again, by competition, I imply CLC 450 and CU 525. One more thing I don't really like about this bike, to be honest with you, is the dash. I don't really think that the bike like this has to have a nice TFT dash, but there's one thing I really need to mention, guys. So yesterday, as I was riding this bike for the first time, I was measuring acceleration for the first time, and I understood that if the day is bright, I cannot actually read the dash well, which is the big problem, especially for you guys, right? So you have to trust my word. So yeah, this dash is pretty simple. There's nothing special about it. I just wish it would be a bit brighter. Alright guys, so this is the place where we're going to measure acceleration once again. Shall we? 5.5 seconds. These are official numbers. Let's go. Alright, it was pretty nice. The good thing about this bike, guys, is that the second gear goes up to 101 kilometers per hour. So it's pretty handy in terms of measuring the acceleration. Benelli 502 that I was checking last time had a problem where you had to turn into third gear in order to get to 100 kilometers per hour, which was pretty annoying, to be honest. But this bike does not have this problem, which is a good feature. Actually, guys, as I ride this machine, I would tell you that it does feel fun. It does feel light and maneuverable. I really like to swerve around on those small displacement cruisers. I feel like this is something pretty much everybody's going to like. And yesterday, me and my girlfriend, we were riding together, and I would tell you that my passenger feels super comfortable about this bike. My passenger tells me that this bike is very comfortable. And I'll tell you one more thing. So I'm 1 meter 85 centimeters, and I feel at home. I feel really good about the ergonomics of this bike. Now, from the side, it does feel as if this bike is a bit small for me, but to be honest, feelings-wise, I feel very good. And my girlfriend, she's only 1 meter 66 or 7 centimeters. She feels really good and comfortable riding this machine as well. So, and this is something unique to those cruisers. They will be approachable for pretty much every single rider. Again, if you're a very short rider, probably this bike would be even better because you can flat-foot it and it will give you this necessary confidence, especially if you're a beginner. Alright guys, let's accelerate once again. Yeah, it does feel torquey, it does feel snappy. Compared to CU 525, it feels a bit slower, to be honest, but these are just my feelings. On paper, this bike is just a little bit slower. The acceleration, the official acceleration of this bike from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour is 5.5 seconds, and the top speed is 160 kilometers per hour. The biggest problem with this machine regarding the competition, in my opinion, is the brakes. So the brakes aren't as sharp as CLC 450 has or Vogue 525 have. I'm squeezing the brake as hard as I can actually, and in the very last moment ABS is engaged. So the brakes work well, but compared to competition, guys, they're not as sharp, they're not as efficient. The first time I rode CLC 450, I was astonished. I was like, no way this bike has such good brakes. And this bike is heavier than CLC 450. The front disc is smaller, and it has 2-piston caliper. To my knowledge, CLC had 4-piston caliper. And even Vogue 525 has better brakes. Again, people, the brakes on this machine aren't bad, but today we're comparing this bike to those other cruisers, and those cruisers, they're lighter and the brakes are better. So in the end of the day, you get way better performance in terms of braking. So this is something to pay attention to. But this bike is really fun to ride, guys. All those small displacement cruisers I was talking about recently, they're really fun to ride. Okay, guys, listen. We're going to accelerate once again. Ready? All right. 1, 2, 3. All right. Yeah, guys, this bike is pretty fun. Again, it doesn't feel as torquey as Benelli 502, to be honest. It doesn't feel as snappy as Vogue 525, but it does feel good. It does feel great, actually, and the acceleration is really decent. On paper, this bike is as fast as those bikes, but feelings-wise, I guess that this bike doesn't feel as snappy. But again, still, a very good performance. This bike does not consume too much fuel, to be honest. So right now we have 23.7 kilometers per liter, which is a good result, right? But one problem that I have with this machine is the fuel gauge. So it isn't precise enough, which causes some problems. This dash actually isn't very informative. Again, it's not too bad, but competition has way better dashes and fuel gauges, way more precise. So this is something to pay attention to as well. One honorable mention, guys, is that I really like those side mirrors. They're really nicely done, they look good, and you can see everything you need. I know that for most people this bike would be way more preferable compared to those Chinese bikes, just because people constantly think about the reliability. Alright, my people, as a summary of the video, I will tell you that I really like this bike. It's very maneuverable, it doesn't feel heavy, it feels heavy only when you stop. Other than that, on the speed, the bike feels really good. It feels snappy and torquey. It isn't the fastest bike from the displacement, but this is definitely the most reliable bike to buy. Now, this is a very simple machine. It doesn't have traction control, it doesn't have super cool dash, but the simpler the dash is, the simpler the bike is, the more likelihood that this bike is going to run for a long time without any problems, because there's just not much to break. Alright, people, I had some blessing riding this bike. I feel like this is a solid choice. Hit me up in comment section below, and as always, guys, stay safe, and I'll see you in next videos. Bye, everybody.